The Galactic Empire had never underestimated a species quite like humanity before. But when their envoy arrived in the outer rim, carrying a warning that echoed across the void, they expected fear, trembling, maybe even obedience. Instead, they were met with laughter. Not the quiet, nervous chuckle of a cornered species, but the bold, unrestrained laughter of humans who had faced impossible odds and refused to bow. The message was clear: the human fleet was not intimidated, and the galaxy was about to find out why. At the edge of a cold, empty system, where stars were sparse and shadows stretched like dark fingers across the void, the human fleet gathered. Ships of every size and purpose floated in tense silence, their hulls gleaming in the faint starlight. Each vessel carried the hopes of billions, but more importantly, each was crewed by human creatures the Empire had long assumed were fragile, limited, and predictable. Yet here they were, bristling with confidence, unshaken by the Empire's threats, ready to challenge what many thought was an unstoppable force. The warning had been simple, almost casual. Withdraw from the frontier or face obliteration. That single line had traveled faster than light to reach the human command stations, carried by cold, mechanical voices and backed by the promise of overwhelming firepower. Most species would have obeyed, their fleets dispersing before the first shot was fired. But humans didn't just hear the words, they heard a challenge. And a challenge, to them, was never a threat. On the bridge of the largest human cruiser, the atmosphere was tense but electric. Eyes flicked over holographic displays, tracking enemy positions, calculating trajectories, and mapping the safest but most daring approaches. The commander, standing tall against the faint hum of the ship's core, allowed a small smile. The Empire believed it had prepared for every eventuality. Yet here was a species that didn't play by the rules, that thrived in chaos, that turned disadvantages into advantages. The Empire would soon learn what countless human victories on distant battlefields had already proven: underestimate humanity at your own peril. Communication channels crackled with the Empire's demands, each message more urgent, more forceful, more desperate to bend the humans to their will. But the human response was nothing more than a single phrase, broadcast across the void: "We see you." And with that, the laughter began not from one ship, but from every corner of the fleet, echoing through the vast emptiness like a declaration of defiance. It wasn't just noise. It was a signal, a warning in its own right. Humans were not afraid, and they were ready to fight. This was not just a battle of ships and weapons. It was a battle of spirit, of ingenuity, of the relentless drive that had carried humanity from primitive beginnings to masters of the stars. The Empire had billions of troops, thousands of warships, and centuries of strategy behind it. But the humans had something the Empire had never fully understood: creativity, unpredictability, and the kind of courage that only comes from knowing you fight for your home, your freedom, and each other. Every maneuver, every tactic, every bold decision would reflect the core of human nature: unwavering, daring, and fiercely independent. Even as the fleets positioned themselves, the tension crackled like static electricity. Distant cannons fired warning shots into the emptiness, tearing trails of light across the darkness. The humans did not flinch. Some watched the streaks of plasma pass with quiet amusement. Others made notes, already imagining ways to turn the enemy's power against them. There was a unity here, forged not by fear but by choice, by a shared understanding that humanity had always survived by refusing to surrender. Yet beyond the strategic calculations and confident laughter, a deeper unease lingered. The Empire was not merely a collection of ships and soldiers. It was ancient, vast, and relentless. Their patience was long, their vengeance exacting. One misstep, one underestimated variable, could spell disaster. And even as the humans prepared, even as they laughed in the face of annihilation, there was a shadow hanging over the edge of their vision, a reminder that the Empire's warning was not empty words. The storm was coming, and no human wit or courage could predict the scale of what was about to unfold. Somewhere in the silent reaches of space, the first signals of engagement began to flicker. The human fleet held its breath, ready for what would either be a historic triumph or a devastating lesson in hubris. And in that tense quiet, as the void itself seemed to pause, the question hung over everyone: could the laughter of humanity truly defy the might of the Galactic Empire? Or was it the calm before a storm that no one would survive? The humans didn't act without reason. Every ship in the fleet carried centuries of lessons learned from war, exploration, and survival. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was the culmination of humanity's stubborn determination to survive against every impossible odds the galaxy had thrown at them. The edge of this uncharted system had become a crucible, a place where the human spirit would be tested against the might of the Empire. And yet, even now, many of the fleet's commanders couldn't shake a flicker of doubt. The Empire was larger, older, and smarter than anything humanity had ever faced. Stories of the Empire's conquest traveled faster than light. Entire worlds had vanished under their fleets, their populations scattered or enslaved, their cities reduced to ash before anyone could even plead for mercy. The humans had heard these tales countless times in history lectures, in old war simulations, in whispered conversations at starports. But fear had never been the language of humanity. Where others saw inevitable defeat, humans saw opportunity. Where others calculated probability, humans embraced possibility. And yet the weight of the Empire's reputation pressed on them now like a cold shadow, reminding them that courage alone might not be enough. The fleet's history was as diverse as the people who manned it. There were veterans who had fought in skirmishes on distant colonies, scientists who had once worked in labs exploring alien technology, engineers who could jury-rig a damaged reactor mid-combat, and young recruits seeing their first stars from the bridge of a cruiser. Every human aboard knew that what lay ahead was more than just a battle. It was a statement. The galaxy had written humanity off as impulsive, reckless, and fragile. Now, for the first time in countless cycles, the humans would prove otherwise, not with rhetoric, but with action. Inside the largest cruiser, the hum of the engines mingled with quiet conversations. The bridge crew reviewed intelligence reports again and again, analyzing every detail of the Imperial fleet, every potential weakness, every historical pattern of their tactics. There were gaps in the information details the Empire seemed intent on hiding. The humans suspected there was more at play than simple intimidation. The Empire didn't send warnings lightly, and threats were never empty. Somewhere in the cold reaches of space, there were strategies within strategies, traps hidden beneath layers of deception. And yet, the humans thrived on challenges, on puzzles the galaxy told them were unsolvable. A young officer leaned over a holomap, tracing the positions of Imperial ships, the paths of likely engagement, the range of their weapons. "They're holding back," he said, almost to himself. "It's like they want us to think we're in control." The commander glanced at him, eyes narrowing. "Or maybe they want us to overcome it. Either way, we'll see." The faintest smirk touched the commander's lips, not arrogance, but recognition of the game. Humans had learned that survival wasn't about brute force alone. It was about timing, improvisation, and the willingness to take risks no one else dared. Meanwhile, across the fleet, smaller patrol vessels zipped through the shadows, scanning for anomalies, for signs that the Empire might be testing them, probing for weaknesses. The human crews worked in tense harmony, their instincts honed by decades of training, their minds alive with anticipation. Each maneuver, each adjustment, carried the weight of a species that had survived famine, disease, and endless wars on worlds that had been called dead. Humanity had endured because it refused to be predictable, and that unpredictability was now their greatest weapon. Even as the humans prepared, the Empire's signals continued to flicker through the void, each one more insistent than the last. The messages were layered with warnings, threats, and subtle hints that their patience had limits. The humans listened, studied, and responded with silence. Not because they didn't care, but because words in this moment were meaningless. Actions would speak louder than declarations, and humans had always preferred proof to promises. Yet, in the quiet moments between commands, some could feel the weight of what was coming. The Empire was vast, patient, and ruthless. Every ship, every calculation, every system within its fleet had been honed to perfection over centuries. One mistake could cascade into disaster. The humans, for all their ingenuity, were only a fraction of the force arrayed against them. And still, their confidence didn't waver. There was a fire in human hearts that no imperial fleet could measure, a stubbornness that had been born in hardship and refined in freedom. That fire was the core of who they were, and the galaxy had not yet seen its full strength. As the stars stretched into streaks through the observation windows, as sensors picked up faint disturbances on the edges of the system, the human fleet braced itself. The first contact could happen at any moment. The silence was almost unbearable, a tension that wrapped itself around every hull and every heart. And somewhere in that silence, a single thought ran through every human mind. The Empire had underestimated them, and it was about to learn a lesson that would echo through the galaxy. But what the humans did not yet know, and what would soon test every ounce of their courage, was how deep the Empire's designs truly went and how high the stakes were for Defiance. Somewhere beyond the visible stars, the game had already begun, and no one aboard the fleet could predict its outcome. The silence of space was deceptive. On the human side, every sensor ping and every flicker on a holographic display was met with a careful analysis. On the far side of the system, the Empire's fleet was moving like a shadow, deliberate and calculated, hiding intentions that no human crew could fully predict. Reports streamed in from scouts' subtle shifts in energy readings, fleeting anomalies in warp signatures, but none could confirm the Empire's true plan. Humans had faced uncertainty before, but there was something in the stillness that felt different, heavier, like the calm before a storm that had been brewing for centuries. Inside the command bridge of one of the smaller human frigates, a communications officer monitored the subspace channels, catching fragments of Imperial chatter that had been intentionally leaked. "They're talking about a containment maneuver," the officer said, voice low. "We don't know what it means yet." The commander leaned over the display, eyes scanning the signals. "Containment or trap," he muttered. "Either way, it's meant to make us hesitate. And hesitation is the only thing we won't allow." Not far away, in the engineering deck of a cruiser, technicians were frantically running simulations of shield efficiency, weapon trajectories, and energy reserves. Every human aboard understood that technology alone would not win this confrontation. The real advantage lay in adaptability. A single ship could be outgunned in seconds, but humans had learned to improvise. They could reroute power through damaged systems, launch boarding drones at critical moments, and even turn enemy sensors against themselves. The engineers worked with a mix of urgency and calm determination, the kind of focus that had saved entire colonies in past conflicts. Meanwhile, aboard a scouting vessel skimming the edge of the system, a young pilot navigated through asteroid debris, eyes on the sensors as faint signals flickered ahead. "Something's moving out there," the pilot reported. "Could be an Imperial probe." "Or something else." The fleet's tactical officer frowned. "Whatever it is, stay sharp. They'll try to test us, probe for weaknesses." "We can't give them anything," the pilot swallowed, gripping the controls tighter. Human nerves were human nerves, even among the bravest, but determination ran deeper than fear. Every human on this mission carried the same thought. The Empire expected submission, and they would not get it. Back on the command bridge of the flagship, the humans debated strategy. Some wanted to engage directly, testing the Empire's response and luring them into overextension. Others argued for patience, to watch and gather intelligence before committing. Both sides understood that the wrong choice could be fatal. Yet every discussion circled back to one central truth: humans thrived where caution alone would fail. They didn't just react, they created opportunities out of chaos. In the depths of space, far from sensors and communications, another human ship drifted in silence. It was a reconnaissance vessel, tasked with monitoring Imperial movements in ways the larger fleet could not. Inside, a small crew huddled around a monitor displaying a cluster of faint energy signatures. "They're deploying drones," one crew member whispered. "Looks like a perimeter. But it's too organized for a trap, right?" The captain shook his head. "No fleet moves that efficiently by accident. Every Imperial ship we've studied follows protocol, and protocol has limits. Watch, record, and be ready. Whatever comes next, we'll need it." Tension was not confined to the fleet alone. Humans across nearby colonies were watching, listening, and preparing in their own ways. Supply convoys were rerouted, communications encrypted, and local militias mobilized, not for immediate combat, but for the certainty that the Empire's shadow stretched farther than any one fleet. The human race was fighting not just in space but in spirit, sending the message that their resolve could not be contained. And yet, even with all this preparation, there were signs that the Empire understood the humans better than the humans understood themselves. Signals shifted too quickly, formations changed before calculations could be completed, and subtle patterns hinted at strategies hidden beneath layers of deception. The humans sensed it, the feeling of being watched, of every move being anticipated, but the answer was not panic. It was focus, adaptability, and a stubborn refusal to be predictable. Somewhere in the outer rim, the first Imperial strike teams began to position themselves, still hidden behind cosmic clouds and gravitational anomalies. On the human side, scouts reported minor disturbances, small energy spikes, faint shadows moving against the starlight. Each report was met with careful analysis, not alarm, but with the knowledge that these were the opening notes of a much larger conflict. Every crew member knew that the next few hours or days could change everything. And through it all, the humans kept one unshakable thought in mind. The Empire had underestimated them. It didn't matter how many ships or how much firepower the Empire brought to bear. Humans had a way of turning the odds in their favor, of exploiting weaknesses invisible to conventional calculation. Yet even with that confidence, every officer, every pilot, every engineer understood that the first engagement would not be a simple victory. It would be a test of ingenuity, courage, and sheer human will. As the stars stretched past the observation windows, as the subtle hum of countless engines filled the void, a quiet anticipation settled across the fleet. Something was coming, something deliberate and enormous. The humans were ready to meet it, but the true nature of the Imperial designs remained unknown. And in that unknown, in the tension between confidence and caution, the first chapter of this confrontation was about to unfold, and no one could predict how it would end. The human fleet had held its breath for cycles now, every crew member acutely aware that the first shots could come at any second. The vast emptiness around them offered no comfort, only the knowledge that the Empire was out there, waiting, watching, calculating. The sensors flickered, reading distant energy signatures, small but deliberate. The humans didn't panic. Panic had never been part of their nature. Instead, they adjusted, repositioned, and prepared. Every eye on every bridge was focused, every mind racing through possibilities, every hand steady on controls. In the flagship's command room, the commander leaned over a tactical display, tracing the paths of the Imperial fleet with a practiced eye. "They're tightening the perimeter," he said quietly. "Every move is deliberate. They want us to commit, to make a mistake." A tactical officer nodded, eyes sharp. "They're probing for weaknesses, but we've left nothing untested. They won't catch us off guard." Yet even as the words left their lips, a quiet tension ran through the room. The Empire was a master of strategy, and no preparation could fully erase the unknown. From the observation deck of a nearby cruiser, crew members watched the void, scanning for anomalies. Shadows moved across the starlight, faint and fleeting, but unmistakable. "There," a young officer whispered, pointing at a distant cluster of ships appearing just beyond a nebula. The commander studied the holographic display. "They've been hiding behind the gas clouds, using them for cover." Classic Imperial misdirection. He allowed himself a brief smile. "We expected them to strike. They just didn't expect us to anticipate it." In the engineering bay, the hum of the reactors filled the space as engineers rerouted power, adjusted shields, and recalibrated weapons. Every system was at peak performance, every contingency accounted for, but still, the uncertainty weighed on them. The Empire's fleets were massive, precise, and well-coordinated. One sudden strike, one hidden weapon, could cripple a ship in moments. Yet, as always, human determination overrode fear. They worked faster, smarter, improvising solutions even before problems fully emerged. Humanity had never faced the impossible and backed down, and this would be no different. Across the system, smaller human patrols navigated asteroid belts, magnetic storms, and radiation pockets, scouting for the Imperial advance. Each pilot understood that the smallest mistake could be fatal, yet none wavered. Every maneuver was calculated, but bold, a reflection of the human instinct to survive through ingenuity. "They're watching," one pilot murmured, scanning the dark expanse. They know we're here. The squadron leader's response was steady, almost casual. Good, let them watch. Let them underestimate us. That's when humans shine. Suddenly, alarms flared across the fleet. Sensors had detected multiple high-energy signatures converging from the far side of the system. The Empire had begun to reveal its presence. The humans tightened formation, shields humming, weapons arming, minds racing through every possible scenario. The air on the bridges was thick with tension. It was the moment they had anticipated, the moment every strategy, every training exercise, every human instinct had been preparing for, but nothing could fully ready them for the reality of facing the Empire head-on. In the midst of the rising tension, the human crews shared fleeting glances, nods of understanding. Fear was natural, but it didn't dominate. Courage did. Ingenuity did. And above all, the determination to survive together, no matter the odds, did. Every officer, every pilot, every engineer knew that the outcome would not be decided by technology alone. It would be decided by adaptability, by creativity, by the human spirit that refused to surrender even when faced with overwhelming force. From a distant vantage point, scouts reported the Imperial fleet emerging from the nebula. Thousands of ships, sleek and deadly, their formations precise, weapon systems already glowing. The humans observed quietly, measuring, calculating, but not yet attacking. Every decision now carried weight, every movement could ignite the first battle or expose a weakness. The tension was unbearable, stretching across the void like an invisible cord. One misstep could cascade into disaster. Inside the command room of the flagship, the commander reviewed the energy readings one last time. "They're positioning for an assault," he said, voice low. "Not just to test us. They want to crush us before we even strike." Tactical officers nodded grimly, already preparing countermeasures. "Then we'll give them a fight they didn't expect," one said. The commander's gaze swept across the bridge. "And we'll show them exactly why humanity isn't so easily intimidated." At that moment, the void itself seemed to shudder. A distant pulse of energy raced across the system, a warning, a signal, or perhaps the first strike. No one could tell. But in the human fleet, every mind tensed, every heart raced. The Empire was no longer a shadow. It was present, tangible, a force closing in with centuries of experience behind it. And the humans were ready not because they had certainty, but because they had resilience, courage, and a defiance that no empire could crush. The starlight reflected off metal hulls, the hum of engines filled the void, and in the distance the first flashes of energy began to dance across the darkness. The climax of the confrontation was building, inching closer with every heartbeat, every calculation, every held breath. The humans were poised, the Empire was advancing, and the galaxy held its breath alongside them. No one knew what would happen next, and that uncertainty was the spark that made every moment electric. The human fleet waited, ready to act, ready to defend, ready to defy. The Empire was coming. And in the cold, infinite expanse of space, the first clash of wills was about to erupt. The first flashes of energy had barely faded when sensors picked up something unexpected. At first, it looked like another Imperial formation emerging from the shadows, but the readings didn't match any known class of ship. The energy signatures were irregular, unpredictable, almost alive. The tactical officer froze, fingers hovering over the console. "Commander, these aren't Imperial ships. At least not any we've catalogued." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Then what are they?" Silence answered them, thick and heavy, as the fleet tried to track the strange vessels. The new ships moved in patterns that defied standard tactics. They didn't follow the tight formations of the Empire. Instead, they weaved through space like predators, shifting direction at speeds that made human sensors struggle to keep up. Each flash of their weapons' energy was unlike the plasma or rail cannons humans had faced before, each pulse leaving faint ripples across the fabric of space. The crew of the flagship exchanged nervous glances, realizing that the confrontation they had anticipated was now evolving into something far more dangerous and far more unpredictable. From the observation deck, a young officer whispered almost to himself, "They're thinking ahead. Almost like they can anticipate us." The commander's hand clenched on the railing. If the Empire is behind this, they've integrated some kind of advanced AI or something we haven't encountered yet. We need full alert, all crews ready. Engineers scrambled to reroute energy reserves to shields. Tactical officers recalculated trajectories, and every pilot double-checked weapon systems. Humanity had faced impossible odds before, but nothing had prepared them for a foe that seemed to anticipate every move before it was made. Meanwhile, scouts at the perimeter reported additional anomalies, faint gravitational distortions, sensor ghosts that flickered and disappeared, and unexplained bursts of energy that didn't match any known technology. It's like the system itself is compromised, one scout murmured. Like something's bending the rules of physics, the tactical officer's jaw tightened. That's exactly the kind of thing the Empire would never do unless they were desperate. Or hiding something. Across the fleet, whispers of unease spread. The humans had counted on the predictability of Imperial strategy. Now, unpredictability ruled the field. On the bridge of a cruiser, a communications officer intercepted a garbled transmission, fragments of a message almost lost in static. The words were faint, almost incomprehensible, but one phrase cut through clearly: contain, deploy humanity. The officer's face went pale. Commander, this isn't just a fight. They're planning something bigger, something involving us directly. The commander absorbed the information, feeling the weight of the revelation settle like a stone in his chest. Then we adapt. As always, we've survived the impossible before. This won't be the first time humanity surprises the galaxy. As the fleet braced for what seemed like a second hidden assault, a new variable emerged. One of the smaller human vessels, sent to scout the perimeter, returned with a warning that made the entire command staff tense. Sir, we've detected a massive energy buildup at the far edge of the system. It's not a weapon, exactly. It's more like a trap. An entire region of space has been rigged to collapse if we enter it. Gasps rippled through the bridge. A kill zone? One officer asked. Exactly, the scout responded. And it's designed for the fleet's movements. Whoever set this up knows our patterns, our strengths, and wants to turn them against us. The humans had anticipated the Empire's firepower, its discipline, and its sheer numbers. They had not anticipated the level of deception now unfolding. Every maneuver they had prepared, every contingency they had planned, was suddenly under scrutiny. The battlefield had become fluid, dangerous in ways no human calculations could fully predict. And yet, as the tension stretched across the void, there was also a spark of determination. Humans thrived where others faltered. They adapted. They improvised. They found opportunity in chaos. At the same moment, deep within the flagship, the engineering crew reported something else, a subtle but persistent interference in the ship's core systems. It's like a pulse, almost synchronized with the enemy fleet, one technician said. If this keeps up, it could overload our reactors. The commander's jaw tightened. So the Empire, or whoever is behind this, wants to cripple us before the first shot is even fired. Then we'll fight back smarter, faster, together. Even as the human crews worked frantically, a low rumble began to ripple through the system, subtle at first, then growing into a pulse that made every hull vibrate. The unknown fleet, the hidden energy traps, the mysterious interference all converged into a single terrifying reality. The humans were facing an enemy that was not only powerful but cunning in ways they had never imagined. And through it all, one thing was clear: the Empire had underestimated them, but it wasn't the humans who were holding the advantage anymore. From the observation windows, distant flashes of energy illuminated the fleet, reflections glinting off hulls. The unknown ships danced between the human formations, moving with terrifying precision. The human crews held their positions, every mind racing for a solution, every heart pounding with adrenaline. The stakes had just multiplied. What was supposed to be a battle of courage had become a test of survival, ingenuity, and the very essence of what it meant to be human in a galaxy that had underestimated them. And in that suspended moment, as the unknown threat loomed closer and the Empire's presence became undeniable, the fleet waited. Each human knew that the next seconds, perhaps minutes, would define not just the outcome of this engagement, but the message humanity would send across the stars. They were ready to fight, ready to adapt, ready to defy the odds. But the question hanging over everyone, unspoken yet impossible to ignore, was simple and terrifying. How do you survive when the rules of the game have already changed? The fleet tensed, every human aware that the moment of truth had arrived. The unknown vessels, moving with eerie precision, closed in on the human formations. Energy ripples distorted space around them, creating pockets of danger no human pilot had ever navigated. The first pulse hit, a surge of power aimed to disrupt the fleet's shields. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and every crew member gripped their stations. Yet humans reacted with the speed and ingenuity that had always defined them. Shields rerouted, thrusters adjusted, and weapons recalibrated on the fly. Every move was instinctual, calculated, and daring. The flagship's commander barked orders, each one slicing through the tension like a blade. Divert power to forward shields. Launch drones to intercept the energy pulses. Target the anomalies, but stay coordinated. Across the fleet, humans responded instantly. Smaller ships swerved through debris fields, larger cruisers formed defensive wedges, and automated drones darted into the pockets of collapsing space, intercepting the energy surges before they could do catastrophic damage. The human fleet was alive with motion, a coordinated dance of courage, skill, and adaptability. Amid the chaos, scouts reported something extraordinary. The unknown vessels, for all their advanced movement, were reacting to the humans predicting some maneuvers but faltering when met with unpredictability. The commander's eyes narrowed. They've underestimated one thing: human improvisation. They can calculate patterns, but they can't anticipate intuition. The fleet adjusted immediately, executing a series of maneuvers designed to confuse the enemy, baiting them into traps the humans had improvised in real time. As the energy pulses continued, one cruiser executed a daring move, diving into the center of the enemy formation. Its trajectory seemed suicidal, but the crew had calculated the odds. The ship released a burst of counter-energy, destabilizing the surrounding anomalies and throwing the unknown vessels into disarray. Another human vessel followed, then another, until the enemy formation staggered, struggling to maintain cohesion. The fleet had turned the tide not through brute force, but through ingenuity, risk, and the relentless courage that defined humanity. Meanwhile, the Empire's main fleet, previously hidden, revealed itself fully. Thousands of warships, sleek and heavily armed, emerged from the nebula, expecting humans to falter in the face of overwhelming force. But the humans did not break. They did not flee. Instead, they pressed forward, weaving between energy traps, improvising tactics, and using the unpredictable elements of space to their advantage. One after another, Imperial attacks were countered, misdirected, or rendered ineffective. Humanity's resilience was on full display, a force no algorithm or weapon could completely neutralize. Then came the turning point. The flagship deployed a coordinated strike, a combination of energy bursts and drone swarms that severed the synchronization between the unknown vessels and the Imperial fleet. The enemy's precision collapsed, their movements jerky and uncoordinated. Human pilots exploited every opening, striking critical points on the previously untouchable ships. Explosions flared in the void, reflected across the fleet as humans cheered through channels, adrenaline surging with every successful maneuver. The Empire's control was slipping, and the humans were taking command of the battlefield. Just as victory seemed within reach, the unexpected occurred. From the outer edge of the system, an immense wave of energy surged across space, so vast it rippled through the fleet like a tsunami. The unknown vessels, once faltering, stabilized instantly, revealing a hidden link to a massive, unseen structure beyond the system, a command station of unknown origin, controlling the anomalies and energy pulses. The humans realized in horror that the fight had only reached its midpoint. The Empire had a secret, and the unknown fleet had been only a precursor, a warning of what was coming. The commander's jaw tightened, eyes narrowing on the distant energy source. "It's bigger than we thought," he muttered. "They've been hiding the real weapon all along." The fleet adjusted, forming defensive rings around the flagship while preparing to advance toward the structure. Engineers rerouted power, weapons primed, and tactical officers recalculated trajectories to intercept the new threat. The humans had won the battle, But the war, or at least this stage of it, was far from over. In the final moments before the fleet moved to confront the hidden station, the commander addressed the crews. "We've shown the galaxy that humanity does not back down. We've adapted, survived, and fought as one. But whatever comes next, remember this: we do not fight because we are invincible. We fight because we refuse to be defeated." Across every ship the words resonated. Courage, ingenuity, and the indomitable human spirit burned brighter than any weapon. As the human fleet surged forward, energy rippling from the hidden station, a final transmission flickered across the void. It wasn't a threat, not yet, but a single phrase that froze every human crew in their tracks. "Congratulations, humans. You've passed the test." The meaning was unclear, but one truth remained. Humanity had faced the impossible and survived. But the real challenge was only beginning. The hidden station pulsed silently in the void, a massive, enigmatic construct that had controlled the anomalies and tested the human fleet's ingenuity. As the fleet approached, cautious but unbroken, sensors confirmed what everyone had suspected: the Empire had never fully revealed its hand. The unknown vessels, the energy traps, the strange pulses, they had all been part of a controlled simulation, a test of humanity's adaptability, courage, and problem-solving under pressure. The realization sent a ripple of awe through the crews. Humanity had not simply survived, they had succeeded where no other species might have. On the flagship, the commander allowed himself a rare moment of relief. The tension that had gripped the fleet for cycles began to ease, replaced by quiet pride. "We did it," he said softly, almost to himself. "We showed them who we are." Around him, officers nodded, faces lighting with the mix of exhaustion and triumph that comes after a battle fought with heart as much as skill. The humans had demonstrated the very qualities that had carried their species through centuries of challenges: ingenuity, courage, and an unshakable refusal to yield to impossible odds. The scouts sent to the outer perimeter reported that the unknown vessels were powering down, their energy signatures stabilizing. They were no longer a threat. Every ship in the human fleet adjusted formation, moving carefully toward the massive station. The engineers worked to analyze its technology, curious but cautious. Humanity had learned lessons here that would ripple across colonies, research stations, and fleets for decades to come. They had faced a force designed to overwhelm, confuse, and dominate, and had emerged not just intact, but stronger, smarter, and more unified. Communications channels buzzed with excitement and relief. Crews exchanged stories of daring maneuvers, near misses, and clever improvisations that had turned potential disaster into victory. For some, the adrenaline was still too high to speak. For others, laughter and cheers filled the bridges. There was no false bravado, here just honest recognition that humans had faced a challenge the galaxy considered insurmountable, and had proven the impossible was possible. As the fleet moved closer to the station, a calm voice came over the long-range channel, one the humans hadn't expected. It was the same as before, but now unmistakable, clear, and deliberate. "Humanity, you have exceeded all expectations. Your adaptability, ingenuity, and courage are remarkable. You have passed the test." There was a pause, then the voice continued. "The Empire underestimated you. The galaxy will remember that." The crew of the flagship felt a mixture of satisfaction and intrigue. The test was over, but questions remained. Who had truly orchestrated this trial, and what were their intentions for the future? On the observation deck, the young officer who had first spotted the anomalies whispered, "They wanted to see if we could survive. If we could think beyond limits." The commander looked out at the stars, glowing against the vast blackness, and nodded. "And we did. Humanity does not follow. Humanity adapts, survives, and thrives. That's something no empire can ever erase." In that quiet reflection, the human crews understood something profound. Victory was not about defeating every enemy. It was about proving that even in the face of overwhelming force, humanity's spirit could endure. As the fleet began to withdraw from the system, returning toward known space, the hidden station remained behind a silent reminder of the challenge they had overcome. Humanity had faced the Empire's warning, the unknown vessels, and the deadly traps, and had emerged triumphant through ingenuity, teamwork, and courage. Every crew member carried a sense of accomplishment and a renewed belief in their species' potential. They had laughed in defiance, and the galaxy had watched. Even as celebrations began aboard the ships, the commander addressed the fleet one last time. "Remember what brought us through this: our curiosity, our courage, and our unity. These are the tools that will guide humanity through whatever comes next. We faced the impossible and survived. Let that be the measure of who we are." The message resonated across every vessel, reminding everyone that victory was not simply measured by the absence of danger, but by the spirit shown in the face of it. As the fleet continued its journey, the stars stretching endlessly ahead, there was a sense of quiet anticipation. The Empire had been challenged, the humans had triumphed, and yet the galaxy remained vast and full of mysteries. Humanity had proven itself capable of facing overwhelming odds, but the future would always hold new tests. What mattered was that humans would meet them not with fear, but with courage, ingenuity, and the determination that had carried them across the stars from the very beginning. And in that moment, looking out into the infinite darkness, the crews of the human fleet understood something eternal. No matter how vast the empire, no matter how clever the trap, humanity's spirit was unyielding. The galaxy had been warned. Humanity had responded. And the story of that defiance, of that laughter in the void, would echo across the stars forever. This completes the story naturally while leaving the human-centric themes, suspense, and reflection intact. The audience is left with a sense of triumph, resilience, and wonder about humanity's role in the galaxy.